With this, we will start the corporate tax return demonstration, and we will highlight specifically the key features that we've mentioned to highlight when submitting your corporate tax return. Starting first, when applying for the corporate tax return, you will enter the Emira Tax portal. You will enter your credentials, the email address, and the password, along with the security code showing on your screens. You will move by clicking on the taxable person profile you would like to proceed with by clicking on View. Once you click on View, you will go to the section where it says Corporate Tax Filings and Refunds. You will click on the Corporate Tax Filings View All. You will move to the actions where it says File, and you will click on File to start your corporate tax return for the selected period. You will start first by reading all the instructions and guidelines of the corporate tax return and click on the checkbox at the end of the page. Starting with the corporate tax return process, it is mainly in the first step 8 main steps, where it should be dynamic whenever you've clicked, if you would like to be as a small business relief or as a qualifying free zone person. So the steps should be based on your answers of the questions and the required information. So let's start first with the taxpayer details, where you will have the filing period at the top of the page. For all steps, it should be appearing to make sure that your corporate tax return period is correct, and the corporate tax return due is correct, and the corporate tax year end is correct. As we've mentioned in the key features, kindly make sure that your corporate tax period is correct before proceeding with your return. If not, you will need to go back and apply for an amendment first, and once the amendment is approved by the FTA, you will come back to complete your return. So we will start first with the corporate tax, with the taxpayer details, where you will need to make sure that you choose the entity type carefully when selecting the correct either legal or natural type during the return filing. You need to realize that if it's incorrect, you will need to apply to change the entity, and changing the entity type will require the FTA's review and approval that may delay your return if done at the last minute. So you may benefit from the initiative and make sure to submit your return ahead of time. Moving to the address details, where you will enter your address details by reviewing it, which will be pre-populated from your registration application. In this section specifically, you will need to answer either with yes or no that your information is correct or incorrect. And if incorrect, you will need to apply for an amendment and make sure that it's get approved before proceeding with your corporate tax return. Moving to this section where you can update the taxable person information. And in the next section, you can update as well the unincorporated partnership details. You can update the business activity details if applicable to you as well. And this section should be very carefully before answering the question, where you can complete the free zone details, and please complete it carefully if you wish to proceed as a qualifying free zone person, where filing a return is mandatory regardless of the revenue amount or profit loss status, where this should apply for all registered taxpayers. So moving to the elections, that should be some elections are irrevocable. So it's important to understand What is the consequences of each election before making a choice? So please make sure to answer the question carefully. That should be best scenario describes your business. Please read the guide and seek tax advice, as this decision will affect your future returns. So let's assume we answered that we would like to be as a free zone person. So the next step should appear on your screen as a free zone details. So you will allow you to update your free zone details if applicable to you, and you will update the revenue schedule as well. Moving to the revenue schedule, which will shows at an auto-calculated number for the total revenue for the de minimis requirement. You can update the non-qualifying revenue details where applicable, and the total non-qualifying revenue should be auto-calculated to you. You cannot update the de minimis calculation where it should be on your screens, and you can update the qualifying revenue where applicable to you. You can update the substance free zones details if applicable, and you will move by updating the free zone confirmation if applicable. You will update as well the additional information based on the emirate, and if you would like to add any additional information, you will add it at the end of the page before proceeding to the next step. Third step should be elections, where this section will allow you to make the elections relevant to you. Please note that there are some irrevocable elections that must be done in the first tax return, where the taxpayer will not be able to change it in the future return. So you need to ensure it and understand the future consequences of each election you will make in this page. Starting with the election for the applying the realization basis, and it's important to note, and you need to know that all your financial statements must be signed and stamped before attaching to the corporate tax return. You will move by you can make the election in this section to the transactional rules, and in this section for the small business relief you can make by applying for the small business relief, where you will be only entitled to the relief if your revenue is 3 million dirhams or less, and if yes or no, you will answer the question carefully. And kindly note, I would like to highlight, if your total revenue equal to or less than 3 million dirhams and you would like to elect for the small business relief, in which case the tax return will be simplified to you and with an approximate 2 to 3 pages long only. Moving to the transfers within a qualifying group, you may elect for it in this section, and moving to the business restructuring transactions, that should be elected in this section. You can make an election as well to exempt for the foreign permanent establishment income, and you will proceed to the next step, which should be the accounting schedules. Kindly note that this section is divided to you into 3 parts that we will go through in a few minutes, and we would like to highlight that all numeric values should be entered as positive, where the system will determine where positive or negative adjustment will be applied in the tax calculation depending on the nature of the field. So let's start with updating the operating revenue details if applicable to you, and you will find the gross profit or loss auto-calculated to you. You will move by updating the interest expense or income details if applicable, and you will find the net interest expense auto-calculated to you. You will move by updating your net interest expense as net loss or gains on disposable of assets, where you will find it auto calculated based on the numeric values you've entered. You can update as well the foreign exchange net losses or gains, and move to the expense net of other income, which should be auto calculated to you based on the information and numeric values provided. The net profit or loss should be auto calculated and gray out for you on all the details you've entered above under the profit or loss section. You will move by updating the statement of other comprehensive income details, and then you will have the total comprehensive income for the year auto calculated and gray out to you based on the numeric values you've provided. You can update the assets details in this section, and you can update the non-current assets details where applicable to you, where you will find the total non-current assets and total assets auto calculated and gray out at the end of this section. You will move to the total liabilities, where you will add the exact numeric value and you will have it auto calculated at the end. You will move and do the same for the total equity by entering the share capital and the retained earnings, where you will have it auto calculated to you. You will move by entering the this section, where you will find it gray out to you and auto calculated of the total equity and liabilities based on the information provided above. You will have the total, you can add and enter your total number of employee in this section, and you will move to the audit section. You can update the other details where applicable to you, and you will move to the shareholder section, where you can click on add shareholder and add all the required fields. Next, you will move to proceeding to the next step, which should be the accounting adjustment and exempt income. So this section will allow you to update the accounting income for adjustments such as provisions adjustment and realization basis adjustment, where you can update the exempt income by providing your details of all the income to be adjusted in the accounting income. So let's start first by entering the accounting income details if applicable and answering the questions carefully. You will continue with updating the accounting income details if applicable, and next you will update all the required fields and fill it in carefully and by answering the questions as well. For the realization basis adjustment, you can update it in this section, and you will move by continuing with updating all the required fields under the realization basis. You will move to the transactional adjustment details, where you will answer the question carefully, and you will move by continuing with updating all the required fields and answering the questions carefully. You can update the taxpayer exempt income details if applicable in this section, and you will continue by updating the exempt income details. You will move to the foreign permanent establishment income details if applicable to you, and once you've completed all the required fields, you will proceed to the next step, which should be the relief section, where it will allow you to include the adjustment which are arising from the reliefs claimed, including transfers within qualifying group or business restructuring relief. And as we've mentioned in the accounting schedule step, all numeric values should be entered as positive, where the system will determine and will read it if positive or negative and will adjust accordingly. So let's start with the relief section, where you can update the transfers within qualifying group section by answering the question carefully and proceeding to continue with updating all the details related to the relief of the transfers within qualifying group. You will move by updating the details of relief related to the business restructuring relief where applicable to you, and you will move with continuing by updating the details of the required fields. Once done, you will review it carefully before proceeding to the next step. This step should be the seventh step of the other adjustments, where it will allow you to make the adjustment for the non-deductible expenditure, adjustment for interest income or expenditure, transactions with related parties and connected persons where applicable to you. And as we've mentioned, all numeric values should be entered as positive, where the system will read and adjust accordingly where positive or negative adjustment needed. We will start first with entering the details of the adjustment for non-deductible expenditure, moving with adding the description for the same. You will move to enter the adjustment for interest income or expenditure details by answering the question either with yes or no, and based on your answers, you will enter the interest capping schedule. So let's assume we're entering the interest capping schedule. You will have the first section where you will need to enter all the details if applicable, where you will have the non-deductible net interest expenditure brought forward, auto-calculated for you for your review. You can either cancel or go back to the main step, or save and go back. So let's assume that we've saved and go back to the main step. You will move by entering the adjustment for interest income or expenditure, and you will have the same section for adding and answering the question carefully for the transactions with related parties and connected person. You will click on the green box where highlighted in this page by clicking on related party transaction schedule, and you will have this page where you will click on add new item to add gross income received from the related parties. You will enter the gross income received from the related parties where applicable to you, and after filling it carefully, you will click on add, and you can view the details that you have entered here. You can click on the next expenditure paid to related parties by clicking on add new item to add the expenditure paid to related parties. You will start it first by entering the expenditure details of the paid related parties, and once done you will click on add, and you can review your details entered by you in this section. You can click as well on the summary table to view all the details entered by you where you cannot make any amendments to the grey out section. You may click on save and go back to the main page, where we will continue by adding the additions as a result of the adjustment to transactions which were not at arm length, that should be auto calculated and grey out to you in dirhams. You will move by clicking on Connected Persons Schedule box, where you will click on Add New Item to add the connected persons schedule. You will enter their details where applicable to you, and you can only view the details you have entered in this section, and click on Save and go back. Moving to the transactions with related parties and connected persons, you will add the details in this section. You will move by entering the adjustments for income and expenditure derived from a qualifying investment fund. You need to enter all the amounts and numeric value as positive as we've mentioned, and make sure that you've entered the numbers carefully. You will move by entering the adjustment for income and expenditure derived from qualifying investment fund, and you will move by entering the details of other adjustment if applicable. Once done, you will move to the next step. So, eighth step should be the tax liability and tax credits, where it will, in this section, it will allow you to display your final tax liability. The taxable income details are auto-calculated as a result of all the schedules and numeric values provided by you, where you can view the description of the taxable income or tax loss as a gray out section in dirhams. You will move by updating your tax losses details if applicable to you, and you will click on tax losses schedule box to proceed with the section. You cannot make any amendments in this gray out field, but you can go to the next page where it says tax losses claimed from other taxable person and click on add new item to add the tax losses claimed from other taxable persons. You will have this page appearing on your screens where you will need to enter the tax losses details claimed from other taxable persons, and once entered carefully you will click on add and you will view the details here that you've entered before proceeding to the tax losses transferred to other taxable person. You will move to the section where you will click on add new item to add the tax losses transferred to other taxable person. You will enter the same and details of the tax losses transferred to other taxable persons, and you will click on save and go back to the main step. So, moving to the tax losses details, which should be pre-populated and gray out to you based on the numeric values you've provided. You will move by reviewing as well the tax calculation and tax credits details as a result of the schedule that you've provided. You will move to the tax credit schedule where you can click on the blue box and click on add new item to add the tax credit schedule. You will add the taxable income and the tax liability, and all the required fields should be filled before proceeding and adding it. You will have this section to review the details you've provided, and you will click on save and go back to the main step where you will have the tax calculations and tax credits populated to you and gray out based on the schedules and numeric values you've provided. You can update the estimated or provisional figures includes in the corporate tax return in this section if applicable to you. And finally, you will upload the additional attachments if applicable to you. Once done, you will click on next step, which should be the last step of reviewing and declaring all your given information. You are required to review this section carefully before submitting your corporate tax return. And after reviewing it carefully, you need to click on the checkbox that you declare that all the correctness of the information provided in the corporate tax return is to the best of your knowledge and belief. Once done, you will click on yes to confirm, and with this, your corporate tax return has been submitted successfully to the FTA, where you will have a reference number for future communication. You can go back to your dashboard of the profile where you can view the status of your return where it says here submitted, and you can view the submission date and all the details required. With this, we've successfully completed the corporate tax return process, and we will proceed now to the payment process demo. So you will go back by entering to the Emirate Tax portal. You will enter your credentials. Next, you will go to the corporate tax return on the first step. Second step, you will click on My Payments. and you will make sure before proceeding that your payments should be the total corporate tax payment due, and you will click on select and pay. You will have the chance either to pay all or pay a partial amount. You can find your return liabilities here, where you will find the period description, the payment due date, and the original liability and the outstanding liability based on the paid amount. So in this section, you may add your amount to be paid if you would like to proceed by either paying partial amount of the return or the full amount. You will proceed by clicking on proceed to payment, and you will have two methods of payment, either GI-ban or card payment, where corporate tax can be paid either by bank transfer or credit card. You will click on yes to confirm, and you will enter your payment details in this section. Then you will click on pay. With this, you will have your payment acknowledgement screen, where you can download it either in PDF copy or go back to the dashboard to navigate to the payments, where you will view the payment overdue amount that you've paid and the total outstanding amount for your corporate tax return. We hope that the demo was beneficial for you, and we encourage you to submit your corporate tax return before the deadline, to allow you to make any amendments or adjustment needed and to avoid any delay. So we will move by reviewing some of the key takeaways that we've mentioned that you need to take into consideration and make sure that it's correct before submitting your corporate tax return. You need to ensure that you are registered first as a taxpayer for corporate tax, and you need to update, if required, your entity type and any other required data to ensure that it's correct within the tax period. And moving to the tax period, you need to check and make sure that the tax period, specifically the first tax period appearing in the registration information, is correct, where we've mentioned it that with the tile that should be appearing on all your steps in Emira Tax Portal. Moving to the financial statements and accounting methods, you need to know that you will be the taxpayer need to prepare and upload their financial statements along with the corporate tax return if your revenue of more than 3 million dirhams in the tax period. You will be required to prepare your accounts as per the IFRS or IFRS for SMEs if applicable, where qualifying free zone persons and taxpayers with revenue of more than 50 million dirhams in a tax period need to get their financial statements audited. Where you need to know as well that taxpayers also need to consider if they need to engage an accountant within an appropriate experience. So when do you need to engage an auditor? Taxpayers which need to engage an auditors should do so before the year end to ensure that the auditors are appropriately involved in the year-end activities, such as including but not limited to stock take and cash count. Moving to the record keeping, and what information do you need to keep? Taxpayers need to make sure that they have the necessary records and information to support their corporate tax return and any application or election they would like to make, where this record must be retained as per the requirement of the corporate tax law. Moving to the small business relief, where we have a common questions on the same, so you need to know and make sure that the taxpayers with revenue of not more than 3 million dirhams should consider they are eligible for the small business relief election and determine if they wish to claim the relief or not, where the system will simplify the steps based on your selection. Moving to other elections, and if you are eligible for other election or not. Taxpayers need to check whether they are eligible to make any other elections as part of the return filing, as we've mentioned in the demo, which includes the election to record gains and losses on a realization basis, exclude income from foreign permanent establishment when determining taxable income, apply transactional rules, apply business restructuring relief, apply transfer within qualifying group relief, and finally be subject to tax at the standard rate instead of the rates applicable to a qualifying free zone person. And kindly note, for tax residency status, we would like to highlight that if you are a resident in the UAE, you need to understand that there are tax resident status, and you need to consider the impact of any applicable double taxation treaties on the residence status, where this is relevant for completing your corporate tax return. Moving to exemptions, and am I eligible to file an application to be an exempt person? Certain exempt persons will be required to file an application with the FTA within 60 days of the end of their tax period. Moving to this question, and when does the taxpayer need an additional support? You need to consider whether you need any additional support from specialists, as an example, from tax agents or specialists to help with preparing your corporate tax return, requesting a clarification, or any other activities. Moving to the auditors, and the audited financial statements are required if you have revenue in excess of 50 million dirhams, as we've mentioned in the relevant tax period. And if you are a qualifying free zone person, the auditor must be registered as an auditor. Moving to the related parties and connected persons, where we've mentioned in the demo, the same person can be a related party and a connected person, where in this case you need to answer the question yes to both questions, whether you had any transactions with related parties or connected person. However, you will only be needed to complete the details of the transactions under one of these categories and not under both of them. All transactions with related parties and connected persons must be at an arm's length. Where this is not the case, the taxable person needs to make an adjustment in its return to reflect the arm's length amounts. And we would like to highlight, for the record keeping, you need to ensure that you have all the necessary records and information to support your corporate tax return, where these records must be retained for a period of 7 years from the end of the tax period. Moving to the income earned outside the UAE, and if you are a tax resident of the UAE, you need to include your worldwide income in your return, not only the income from UAE sources. And we would like to highlight and emphasize on the conditions to benefit from the initiatives from the Ministry of Finance and the Federal Tax Authority, that the initiative is launched to waive the late registration penalties under the corporate tax law. You need to be applicable to the corporate taxpayers and certain exempt person required to register with the Federal Tax Authority, and you will need to submit your corporate tax return or annual declaration within 7 months from the end of the first tax period. So kindly make sure that you have 7 months period before the end of your first tax period to allow you to give you more time to submit your return and to benefit from the initiative to waive your late registration penalties. So we would encourage you to submit your corporate tax return before your due date to have a waive from your late registration penalties, where full compliance with the provisions of the corporate tax law should apply. And with this, I hand over back to my colleague Hassa Banna.
Thank you, Rola, for providing clear instructions on how to apply for corporate tax return. Before moving to the Q&A session, please follow us on our social media channels to stay updated on upcoming workshops and access our services. And now we will leave the QR code of the survey on the screen. Your participation is greatly appreciated. To learn more about your experience on today's session, please choose Corporate Tax Journey in question 5, and the survey link will be provided in the chat box. Participating in the survey, we will now move on to the Q&A session to answer the most common questions. First question is, in 2024, a natural person started a new business through an LLC where he owns 100% of the capital, single owner LLC. Who should register?
Thank you for the question, Hassa. The LLC is a taxable person, as you may know, who is a juridical person and have a separate legal personality from its owner. Then it should register for the corporate tax purposes.
Can I file one CT return for all companies I own?
Thank you, Hissa. If the companies meet the requirements to form a tax group and their application to form a tax group is approved, they can file a single UAE corporate tax return covering all the members of the tax group. However, where companies cannot form a tax group, they will each be required to file a corporate tax return on a standalone basis.
Another question. Can any company natural person elect for the small business relief, or will the FTA inform them whether they are eligible?
Thank you, Hissa. This is some of the most common question we're receiving, and as we've mentioned in the demo, election for small business relief is required to be made in the tax return, where we've mentioned for the relevant period. No application or intimation is required to or from the FTA as long as the revenue does not exceed 3 million dirhams. In case you elect for small business relief in your return, you can use the cash basis as we've mentioned of accounting, and no need to have a financial statement, but you must have a proof of revenue. So kindly note, either ways you will need to submit your corporate tax return.
Will a free zone entity be required to register and file a CT return?
This is an important question as well for free zones. Yes, all free zones entities will be required to register and file a corporate tax return, irrespective of whether they are a qualifying free zone person or not.
Thank you. What is the time limit to file a tax return?
The time limit to file your tax return for a natural person who is a taxable person, you must file a corporate tax return with the FTA no later than 9 months from the end of the relevant tax period. And to benefit from the initiative of waiving your penalty of corporate tax registration, you will have the chance to submit your corporate tax return within 7 months from the end of the tax period to waive your penalty. So kindly benefit from this initiative and go file your return.
Who should submit the corporate tax return?
A tax return must be submitted by a taxable person or any person who has the right to do so on behalf of the taxable person, which includes either a tax agent or legal representative or the parent company of the tax group who is required to file the tax return on behalf of the tax group.
Thank you, Roba. Can I correct my return and how?
Yes, you can correct your return, and if the correction is made before the due date, it will be considered as an amendment, which is beneficial to you. And if it's made after the due date, it must be submitted as a voluntary disclosure through Emirate Tax.
Do we need a financial statement of elect small business relief?
Taxpayers who elect for the small business relief don't need financial statement but must be able to prove revenue if the FTA requests. And if you did not elect for the small business relief, a financial statement must be prepared in terms of IFRS and IFRS for SMEs, where all taxable persons with more than 50 million dirhams and qualifying free zone persons, irrespective of their revenue, must have audited financial statement. And the financial statement must be signed and stamped before attaching it to the return.
Thank you. If my company did operate zero revenue, do I need to file return for corporate tax?
This is an important question as well that we're receiving a lot. Let's repeat the question. If my company did operate zero revenue, do I need to file a corporate tax return? Yes, you will need to apply for the corporate tax return. If you have not earned any income in the tax period, you will still need to file a return as well, where you can elect the small business relief when answering the question, and you will have a simplified return. Or if you don't want to elect for the small business relief, you will complete all the steps we've mentioned in the demo as a normal corporate tax return. Where amounts are nil, you will need to populate nil in the relevant fields. So please make sure either ways you will need to apply for the corporate tax return.
Thank you, Roda. Do profit and loss and balance sheet statements need to be generated from an accounting software, stamped and signed if the company is non-qualifying free zone LLC with no revenue but expenses only?
The profit and loss and balance sheet need to be signed and stamped before attaching to the corporate tax return, where the amounts input in the tax return must match the amounts as per the financial statement. However, given that the company has no revenue, it may elect its return for small business relief, in which case no tax is payable and financial statement need not to be attached to the return.
Another question. Our sister company has no business and no transactions. Its trade license expired and not renewed. And now we are under process of trade license cancellation. Can I process the deregistration of corporate tax now or after the completion of trade license cancellation?
Thank you, Hessa. The company needs to apply for deregistration first within 3 months from the cessation of business or business activity, and you will need to attach the trade license cancellation to the deregistration application.
All financial statements need to be signed and stamped if the revenue is over 3 million dirhams. Is it imperative to get it audited by auditors? And if so, is it mandatory for them to be in the register of the auditors in the UAE?
Only taxable persons with revenue above 50 million dirhams need to be audited as per the financial statements. However, if the company is a qualifying free zone person, it also needs an audited financial statement irrespective of the revenue amount. And kindly note that the auditor must be a registered auditor.
Thank you, Rhoda, for your time and for providing clear answers for the questions. And now we are reaching the end of the session. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's workshop. Please visit our official website and follow our social media to stay updated on our events and activities related to corporate tax. Thank you and have a lovely day.